funny thing happened to me about 15 years ago. I may have been paid to promote Russian propaganda. I'm not sure that's what happened. I'll present the evidence and you can draw your own conclusions. It's very interesting. I don't think it's particularly important. What is important is the three arguments that I'll present first. That uh, Russia tries really hard to target all dissenting groups, regardless of what they believe. That this is a very central part of their intelligence operations, and that they care even about very, very small influencers. So let's get going. The idea of targeting everybody is stated explicitly by many Russian figures, but it's stated most clearly by Alexander Dugin, whose influence is probably exaggerated, especially influence within Russia. He's more of an external facing figure, but nevertheless, I think he's an accurate reflection of Russian thinking. Alexander Dugin has called repeatedly for Ukrainian genocide, which means he hates Ukrainians almost as much as he hates surfers. He has written, the most important factor should not be whether these groups are pro-Russian or not, but what they oppose is of much greater importance here. And if you think about it, if you think Russia trying to posture as a superpower with an economy just a little bit bigger than the state of Florida's, this strategy is, I think, very economical. A little bit of money goes a long way when you put it into the right hands. The full quote is from a 2014 book of his. We need to collaborate with all forces, right or left, who share our principles. The most important factor should not be whether these groups are pro-Russian or not. What they oppose is of much greater importance here. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Pursue a strategy of uniting left and right everywhere, including in the United States. And their interest in dissenting groups is discussed in their own television channels quite a bit. These are a few examples. They're actually not the best ones, but they were easy to find. So here they're talking about Texas secession, and here they're talking about Scottish secession and the Basques in Spain. But let's get into it with dissenting groups. So I know the most about libertarians because I used to be one. Here's an article that I wrote for the Mises Institute. I was searching the archives in Lviv, Ukraine, trying to identify the childhood home of Ludwig von Mises, who had a thing or two to say about Russia. You should look that up if you haven't. In stark contrast to most of what the Mises Institute says. But anyway, so I know mostly about the libertarian talking points. And in these three essays, I collected a lot of examples of just this overt, ham-fisted propaganda coming from many channels. These three essays are Putin's Libertarians, When Your Former Libertarian Hero Calls You a Nazi, and the latest libertarian shillery for Russia. Now, these are older. They're from the 2014 invasion, but they're really good. This is a really good collection of specific nonsense. And among it was a lot of stuff from Daniel McAdams, head of the Ron Paul Institute, who was really concerned about Russian-speaking Ukrainians and repeatedly claimed that the Ukrainians are carrying out ethnic cleansing of Russian speakers in Ukraine. Now that Russia has bombed Kharkiv, including with cluster munitions, now that Russia has a Russian-speaking city, now that Russia has wiped Mariupol off the face of the earth, killing tens of thousands of people, possibly even more than that, his concern for Russian-speaking Ukrainians is gone. He is instead repeating a different set of Kremlin talking points. No more concern for Russian-speaking Ukrainians. But jumping to the present day, here's the Libertarian Party of Nevada. Let Ukraine burn. And here's the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. Here is somebody wiping their butt with the Ukrainian flag. Incidentally, in 2014-15, there were a few really good articles about Russian troll houses, gatherings of Russian people um, in St. Petersburg getting paid a few $100 a month to just be trolls. A really good expose. They had interviews with people who had worked there, and one of the things that came out was that they were encouraged to be as vulgar and abrasive as possible. So stuff like this should be of no surprise. And the examples really are paramount. These are just the ones that I grabbed. So let's move on from libertarians to the radical right. Who remembers that rally in Charlottesville? Rally, protest, riot. They chanted some strange things there, including this. Let's have a listen.
Russia is our friend.
Russia is our friend. Russia is our friend.
Pretty crazy, huh? And it's pretty ubiquitous in the radical right too. Here's this strange guy, Nick Fuentes, praising Putin for trying to liberate Ukraine. I mean, these are such annoying talking points because they're just completely bizarro world. 98% of Ukrainians view Russia as the enemy. There's so much human suffering has been inflicted. Quarter of the country was turned into refugees, and yet idiots like this are just repeating these types of things, and not just turned into refugees, but refugees from Kharkiv, Russian-speaking city. It's only 40 kilometers from the Russian border, but the refugees almost all went to, instead of 40 miles to Russia, they went 700 miles to Lviv or to Poland. Kind of a repeat of 2014 when 70% of the refugees from Donbass went to Ukraine, 30%. I know quite a few of them, and 30% went to Russia, according to UNHCR. Moving on, let's transition to radical left, and it's good to transition on this figure, Hinkle, Jackson Hinkle, because he's both. He was, I think now he's more on the right. Earlier he was on the left. Here he is in front of a Bernie Sanders mural with a Howard Zinn book, and his Twitter is just a complete bizarro world propaganda. Getting more decisively and consistently on the radical left, you have a former Communist Party candidate, a presidential candidate in the United States, John Parker. He showed up all the way in occupied Luhansk to praise Russia's invasion. That is a long way to travel. I don't know if we're supposed to pretend like he's not a Kremlin agent, or is he open about it? Because that's a long way to go. Code Pink, I don't know if they're qualify as radical left. They're certainly on the left. They're more anti-war. Here is Medea Benjamin and Jody Evans. There have been these horrible interviews with them, and their views are summarized by this meme and also this one, just blaming it all on NATO, ignoring overt statements of genocide, overt genocidal language and behavior, and ignoring centuries of this type of behavior long before NATO was even a thing. And if you want to see something that you cannot possibly unsee, then watch this video of some crazy CPI communist rally in Chicago. And here you can see the symbol of Russia's invasion, the Z, which is not a Cyrillic letter. You can see the flag of the fake country that they set up inside of Ukraine, and this is as cringeworthy as you can find. There's a St. George ribbon on her lapel. Yeah, insanity. All right, so we talked about white nationalists. Let's not leave out the black nationalists charged with working with Russian intelligence. I don't know if Cornel West qualifies as a black nationalist. Maybe he's more radical leftist, but he just repeats the meme that it's NATO is a evil imperialist organization, um, and they're mostly at fault. Again, so basically this meme, and he's absolutely sure of it. Like yeah, he'll speak for the Ukrainian people. Incidentally, there was a Senate a Senate Intelligence Committee report said that blacks were the most targeted group of Russian influence. This is mostly in the context of the 2016 election, but nevertheless, it seems like a big thing. Uh, Senate Intelligence Committee found that black Americans were the largest demographic group targeted by Russia. All right, and it's not just overtly political organizations. I think you're not going to see too much of this anymore. This is a LGBTQ rally for Russia, in favor of Russia's invasion. I think right now Russia is betting heavily on sort of like radical conservatives in the U.S. coming to power and supporting Russia, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But in 2014, it wasn't so clear anymore, and they just had all of their little groups do rallies, including this LGBTQ rally for Russia and communism in New York City. Let's read some of the signs. There's no pride in supporting Kiev fascists. Solidarity with resistance in Ukraine. So they call the invaders like the resistance. And it's religious organizations too, both Muslim and Christian organizations. And the funniest way that ever manifested, this is from 2017, was in Texas, where it seems that Russian actors organized both an anti-Islam and pro-Islam protest at the same location at the same time on May 21st, 2016, using separate Facebook pages operated from a so-called troll farm in St. Petersburg. And they encouraged both sides to battle in the streets, which is perfect for Russia. Again, if Florida wants to be a global superpower, like, you need to get a lot of bang for your buck, and you need to, and I think if targeting dissidents, dissidents are, disenfranchised people, a little support probably goes a long way. And you can also look back to Soviet times for the Kremlin targeting non-overtly political organizations. So this is Yuri Bezmenov, a very high-level KGB defector who fled to the U.S. because he was disgusted by Russia, or by the Soviet system. I think he was holding out hope for Russia. And here is a picture of him next to the leader of the Transcendental Meditation movement. They decided that Transcendental Meditation promoted a sort of detached navel-gazing among America's elite, which was bad for America and therefore good for Russia. And so they looked into the Transcendental Meditation movement. So these were readily available examples. It didn't take that much time at all to compile them. You can make much more exhaustive lists, and some people are doing so. And I don't mean to quash dissenting voices. In fact, I think part of the problem is that too many dissenting voices either have been kicked off or feel like they would be kicked off more mainstream platforms. And so they go onto these alternative platforms that are just cesspools of Kremlin propaganda. So, a quick side note, Russia's intelligence operations really are like a natural wonder. It really is impressive how they aspire to be all these different things to different people and to some extent succeed. This is nothing new. It's part of an information culture that goes back centuries. There are at least two maps like this one depicting Russia as an octopus with its tentacles going all over the place, perfectly reflective of how today they find themselves in all these, or you find their influence in all these little groups and subgroups. Also from the 19th century, there is this poem by a Russian poet, umom Rusiju ne понять, intelligently, or with your brain you cannot understand Russia, you can only believe. That is exactly their broader belief in a czar. You're asked to suspend your intelligence and simply believe in the czar. Also from the 19th century, French travel writer Marquis de Custine gives some scathing accounts of Russian bureaucrats explicitly boasting to him about their capacity and effectiveness of lying. More recently, they've pursued strategies like whataboutism, which mostly during Soviet times was used to waste the time of critics and by false comparisons, and also the firehouse of falsehoods, which is just polluting the information space, something they're very good at. I think the perfect metaphor for these information ops are the Kremlin itself. When you look at it, it seems like there's symmetry there. Your eyes sort of scan all the different towers, thinking that you'll find symmetry, but you never quite do. It's always leading you somewhere, but you never really get anywhere. Just like Russian propaganda, they just need to lead you without ever taking you somewhere. Ultimately, you must suspend your intelligence, suspend your rationality, and simply believe in the all-powerful czar. Now I want to make two smaller points that the information strategy is by far the most important thing of Kremlin propaganda. And in another essay that I wrote for Small Wars Journal, I showed evidence that like the information in war, information is like even more important than the tactical outcome. Like in the United States Army, we have our principles of war, mass, mass, economy of force, key terrain, I forget what they are. And Russia has their equivalent, but they have information as one of them. We don't. Ours are all strictly tactical. So that's for more evidence. But let's listen now to Yuri Bezmenov, who we saw without his shirt on a moment ago with the Maharishi, and listen to him talk about the priorities of the KGB.
There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB. All
right, so there you have it. Let's listen now to him talking about how they go after even very, very small influencers and how they build influencer lists. Now, keep in mind, they were doing this before the internet, so the internet probably made that much easier, much more automated, and again, allowing them to get a lot of bang for their buck. In my estimation, what do you think?
Is Comrade Mehdi, an Indian communist, and on the right, Comrade Mitrokhin, my supervisors in the secret department of research and counter-propaganda. It has nothing to do with either research or counter-propaganda. Most of the activity of that department was to compile huge volume of information on individuals who were instrumental in creating public opinion. Publishers, editors, journalists, actors, educationalists, professors of political science, members of parliament, representatives of business circles.
He's going to cite an example from Vietnam. And keep in mind, all of the Asian communists, whether it be Mao's Chinese, the Cambodia's Khmer Rouge, or the North Vietnamese, they were all trained in Moscow.
Most of these people were divided roughly in two groups. Those who would toe the Soviet foreign policy, they would be promoted to the positions of power through media and public opinion manipulation. Those who refused the Soviet influence in their own country would be character assassinated or executed physically come revolution.
So that's an interesting thing too. Within foreign societies, they attempt to promote the right people and keep their ideological opponents down.
Same way as in the small town of Hue in South Vietnam, several thousands of Vietnamese were executed in one night when the city was captured by Viet Cong for only 2 days. And American CIA could never figure out how could possibly communists know each individual, where he lives, where to get him, and would be arrested in one night, basically in some 4 hours before dawn, put on a van, taken out of the city limits and shot. The answer is very simple. Long before communists occupied the city, there was extensive network of informers, local Vietnamese citizens, who knew absolutely everything about people who are instrumental in public opinion, including barbers and taxi drivers. Everyone.
All right, and I think everybody accepts that the modern Russian intelligence services have a lot of continuity with the KGB, same people, same strategies, same mentality. But in case you don't, let me read you an excerpt from my essay, When Your Former Libertarian Hero Calls You a Nazi. And here I'm quoting Lieutenant General Ion Pacepa, the highest-ranking Soviet bloc intelligence officer to ever defect. The very idea that the Soviet Union was defeated is disinformation itself. The Soviet Union changed its name and dropped its facade of Marxism, but it remained the same Samoderzhavya, the historic Russian form of autocracy in which a Tsar is running the country with the help of his secret police. During the Soviet Union, the KGB was a state within a state. Now the KGB is the state. 6,000 former KGB officers are running Russia's federal and local governments. The Soviet Union had 1 KGB officer for every 428 citizens. In 2004, Russia had 1 FSB officer for every 297 citizens. Russia today is the first intelligence dictatorship in history. It is a brand new form of totalitarianism, which we are not yet familiar with. Now the KGB, rechristened FSB, is openly running Russia. All right, so those are my 3 arguments that Russia targets all dissenting political groups regardless of what they believe, that this is a central part of their strategy, and that they even are interested in very, very small influencers. So let's talk about what happened to me 15 years ago. Where was I? Okay, so I didn't like that opposition to the Iraq War was so stifled. Phil Donahue, a huge television personality, lost his job because he opposed the Iraq War, and I didn't like how Ron Paul was completely censored in the 2008 election. And so what did I do? I created a blog. Now, it doesn't matter if you agree with me or don't agree with on these issues. This is just where I was here. I have a huge treasure trove of Ron Paul censorship information, even though the blog is long gone and has a lot of stuff on it that I now find embarrassing. So here, Ron Paul, after he finished second in the Nevada caucus, look, they don't even put him up here. And this wasn't the worst of it. There's a Gallup poll excludes him completely, even though they mentioned these obscure candidates. Anyway, okay, so I had a blog. It was like some people, when things make them angry, they post on Facebook. I posted on my blog. It was kind of like just for myself. I didn't even have double-digit readership. Only on good days did I have, double-digit readership. Mostly it was like single-digit visitors, probably all web crawlers. So absolutely nothing blog. And I ran it for a while, and for a little while I got paid to host a link, which was nice. And then I shut it all, that stopped, and then a few years later I shut down the whole thing. And I would have forgotten about it completely had it not been for Russia's invasions of Ukraine. And then I thought back to it later, and I'm like, kind of coincides. Shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that was when that was when somebody started paying me $30 a month. And I don't have the original correspondence, but I have these emails, so check it out. From April, the invasion was in August of 08, and I first got paid in April of 09. And I looked through it a bit, and I did post some stories like this one. This one I was on my site. Did McCain help bait Russia into Georgia? So basically, I'm repeating this thing that it's all NATO's fault. I also linked to Campaign for Liberty, and one article had like it was about the Iraq War, which was the issue that kind of broke me from the mainstream media to some degree, and made me like tune into other channels to begin with, and so that was fine. And then it had like a blurb. And not only should we oppose the Iraq War, we should also avoid conflict with Russia over the Georgia or something like that. So that was me. I was also reposting a lot of stuff by people who I now consider to be overt Kremlin propagandists, Lou Rockwell, among them, antiwar.com. So I was just an echo chamber, even though maybe I didn't post any specific content about Russia and Georgia. So that's most of the evidence. So here are the evidence of the payments. I got paid. Here's a receipt from PayPal. I got paid $30 a month for 8 months, $240. The link, if you're curious, the link was to a page that was covered in affiliate links. So I was promoting a page that had affiliate links for credit cards or loans or services like that. And another thing that's really strange, and perhaps if it's a coincidence, then a big coincidence, I looked up the name of the person. Well, first of all, the most bizarre thing, it's the name of a person who died in either 07 or 08. That's weird. But there's another person who just doesn't have any records with the same name. The last name has the highest density concentration in Belarus, with a lot in Russia as well. So that's also a coincidence. So what do you think? Was I paid because I was a node of Russian propaganda? Or is it all a coincidence? Is it all in my head? Just because I'm paranoid I should breathe into the mic. Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not after me. So let's finish this video by with me addressing those of you, if anybody, who are either consciously nodes of Russian propaganda, or are like, you're in a dissenting political group and you're like, man, they really love Russia around here. What's going on? So first of all, realize that you're a lot like Marquis de Custine. Marquis de Custine lived 200 years ago, and he was very disgusted with the state of affairs in France. He didn't like the political system, and so he went looking for alternatives. He went to Russia looking for arguments against representative government, but was appalled by the autocracy as practiced in Russia, and equally by the Russian people's apparent collaboration in their own oppression. And he is now best known for his criticism of Russia, which comes in a book, La Russie, from 1839. And many of the things that he writes in there, to me, seem like they were written last week. Secondly, if you are a node of Kremlin propaganda, or think you're close to one, let's listen to what they probably think of you. Probably it's quite similar to what the predecessors thought, the Kremlin predecessors, the KGB agents, thought of the people who they were controlling in foreign societies.
A group of Pakistani and Indian intellectuals. Most of them pretended they don't understand that we are actually working on behalf of the Soviet government and the KGB. They pretended that they are actually being guests, VIP intellectuals, that they are treated according to their merits and their intellectual abilities. For us, they were just a bunch of political prostitutes to be taken advantage for various propaganda operations. Therefore, you can see perfectly
Political
well
prostitutes.
the senior colleague of mine on the left doesn't really have that much respect on his face, and myself with a very skeptical smile, typical KGB sarcastic smile,
Typical KGB sarcastic smile. He makes 3 references to that in this video. I think I've encountered it elsewhere, and I think it deserves maybe being trying to pin it down. Let's listen to one more clip of what Kremlin agents thought about the people who they were influencing in foreign societies. Now he's going to talk, of course, about the Marxists, but just pretend he's talking about someone in any of the dissenting groups.
Don't they serve some purpose? Wouldn't they be the ones they rely on?
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But
congrats on listening until the end. Like and subscribe. Catch you next time. Bye.